Welcome to YOUCANIC. Today here on YOUCANIC we have a 2018 Kia Soul, and on this Kia Soul we're going to go over how you replace your brakes and rotors on this vehicle. This is the front brakes and rotors. We're just going to show you how it's done, take it all apart, put it back together, because these brakes and rotors have been done fairly recently, so this is just an example of how you would do it. There will be no new components going on at the moment. So I have jacked up the vehicle. I've got it supported with jack stands. They're on the cross member right there. And then also the tire has been removed and the steering has been turned to the right for ease of access to the bolts that we need to undo to be able to get this to come off. Now see if this doesn't spin. Well, it's not going to spin completely well, but we want to just back this brake off a little bit so you can grab in between through this hole, and we just want to pull the caliper just a bit. We don't need to pull it all the way. You can pull it all the way too, but we just want to depress that caliper a little bit to give us easier when we undo the bolts here that this will come off. Okay, so now we're going to undo these two bolts here, and these are a size 14. And they may spin sometimes down here, so you may need a second wrench to get in there to hold them back. And since we have the space to turn that up like that, and see, these are the brakes, and these are metal retainers that are designed to keep the brakes off of the caliper once you've released this off of the rotor, is what these are. They're a spring types to push them back. And then up here we have the caliper that we're going to want to depress. And so a lot of times I'll use the old brake once you pop it off, and you can put it in here to be able to have something to push against. So these, we're just going to pop these out. And when you buy new brakes, these generally will come fresh. If they didn't, you'll want to try to reuse the old ones. Okay, so you can use the old brake just by placing it in there and using a brake depressor to be able to push that caliper back. And we're checking that this pushes back fairly easily, in which it does, and so we know that this is not seized up. And when you look at your brake wear, we can see that these brakes have not, they're wearing very smooth. That's a good sign. So now that we've pressed that back, let's just go ahead and finish removing . And then we can set our brake caliper up here, or if you have a hanging cable to hold this up, you can hold that up. And we're just going to set it there and try to keep as little tension on this brake line as we can. And now we've got here, we can pop this other brake off. You can do it now, or you can do it later. And now we will go ahead and undo these two bolts, which those are the size 17. And that's what holds the carrier bracket to the hub itself. Okay, so now we have removed the carrier from the unit. And you can do this either way, but see, we have two screws here to hold this rotor to the hub. Sometimes they're in there, sometimes they're not, especially when you've got the studs on there. They're not as crucial to have, but they are a P3, and you can back them out. And sometimes these can be a really big pain to get out, so you may have to use types of hammers and clamps. These are there to help stabilize the rotor while you're doing the assemblies and putting this together, because once you got the lug nuts on here and the rim itself, this is going to be held really tight. But that's how you would remove the rotor. And then you can clean this up if you need to a little bit with a wire brush. And then once you're done there, you'll put the new rotor on. Like I said, this is just showing you how it's done. Put the new rotor on, line up the screws. And we'll tighten those up. Now, if these screws were broken or missing, you can just put lug nut on here and tighten the one lug nut up to hold it in place while you're putting the carrier and everything back together with the brakes. So down here we have our carrier, and when you're putting new ones on, these brackets will come off, and you'll put new nice shiny silver, well, they could be silver or goldish color. So these will just pop off, and then you would take the new ones if your kit comes with it. Sometimes they don't, but when you buy a good brake kit, they should come with fresh ones to put on. And this is just to help your brakes slide back and forth smoothly, because you want them to slide back and forth smoothly so that your brakes will operate correctly. We also want to twist these to see how good they are. This one's a little bit stiff, and so you're going to twist them to pull them out, and we're going to put new fresh grease on these. This one's a little bit stiff, mainly because it's got this rubber on there to it stops the chatter. So, put some disc brake caliper grease. It can be all various colors. Mine just happens to be green. I've seen it in purple, you name it, but just make sure you're buying the grease that's made for brake calipers. Right? Now, we've got some air in there, so we're just gonna work that out. That's why it's popping out like that. Okay, we're gonna do the same with this one. We just twist and we can pull it out. Wipe this clean. We can place some new brake caliper grease on here, and then you insert it. I like to spin it as it goes in so it coats everything. And then when you've gone ahead and done that, now you can reinstall your carrier with our two size 17 bolts. So now we'll want to take our brakes and put them on. The one with the two dots is going to go on the outside. You just get them lined up in there. And you'll be able to press them on. And then this one, the one with the wear sensor, it goes on the inside. Just line those up. The top clips have some little tabs, so you're going to put the top of your brake in first. And I mean, you can load it before you put the carrier onto the hub itself, but and then you'll put these clips in. Like I said, these just help. They're springs that will hold your brakes from riding and making noise on the caliper itself. And when you're done with all that, now you can bring your caliper down. And then we got our size 14 bolts. And you see these are spinning now, so we need to get a another wrench on the back. You're going to want to make sure it's, if you've got a narrow one, it's going to be the best. It is a size 17. You just need to hold it so that the resistance, you can tighten that. Okay, so that's how we replace our front brakes. Like I said, this is an example of how it's done on this Kia Soul. But if you were putting new brakes, you got new brakes, these new shims, and the rotor itself. When you're done there, you put the tire on, snug it up, put it on the ground, torque your tire to spec, and make sure that you pump the brakes a couple times before you roll on, so that your car will stop when it needs to. Thanks for watching YOUCANIC, where you can be the